Russians rally in support of Alexey Navalny. The poisoned Putin critic is locked up in Moscow's most notorious prison, but thousands demand he be set free. A court has ruled he stay put, but could mass unrest force the Kremlin's hand? I'm Maria Ramos, and today's newsmakers are the protests in Russia. Alexey Navalny was fighting for his life last year after being poisoned. These days, he's fighting for his freedom. Even though a court has rejected Navalny's appeal against his detention, tens of thousands of Russians are still demanding his release. The authorities have been doing what they can to shut down demonstrations. In recent days, thousands have been arrested, including some of Navalny's closest allies. The Kremlin critic has taken on the president for years, and even from behind bars, he's creating problems for Putin. Shortly after his arrest, Navalny's team released a video claiming a sprawling seaside palace had been built for the president using taxpayers' money. Moscow claims it's nonsense. Nevertheless, it's riled up many Russians struggling to make ends meet. And as Adam Pletz reports, the pressure on Putin is growing.
Don't be silent. Resist. Take to the streets. No one will protect us except ourselves.
And that's what they did. As many as 40,000 in Moscow alone, and in cities spanning Russia, protesters turned out in the bitter cold, calling for the release of Alexey Navalny, the anti-corruption campaigner who's become the face of Russia's opposition. Navalny was poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent in August and spent months recovering in Germany. Western governments agree with his assessment that it was an attempt by the Kremlin to kill him. President Vladimir Putin, who never mentions Navalny by name, denies any involvement.
But this does not at all mean that it is necessary to poison him. Who needs him? If they had wanted to fatally poison him, they would have brought it to the end and finished the job.
But Navalny has proved a difficult man to stop.
They did everything to scare me. All that was left for Putin was to hang a giant sign above the Kremlin saying, "Alexei, please don't come home under any circumstances."
So inevitably, Alexei returned, and inevitably, Alexei was arrested. He's now serving 30 days for violating the parole of previous charges by leaving Russia, even though he was in a coma at the time. But on his second day of detention, Navalny released a video accusing Putin of embezzling $1.4 billion by co-opting billionaire oligarchs to construct him a palace fit for a czar. Located on the Black Sea coast, it's replete with a swimming pool, casino, cinema, vineyards, an ice skating ring, its own closed airspace, and even a saloon fitted with a stripper's dancing pole, or so claims Navalny. The video has been viewed around 100 million times, forcing a denial from Putin. But of course, the Russian president was never accused of direct ownership, per se.
Nothing described there as being my property belongs to me or has ever been mine. Neither mine nor my relatives. Never.
But the corruption allegations have struck a chord with demonstrators.
Putin and the oligarchs are afraid of losing their feed-in trough, and they are therefore now dispersing people.
In all, nearly 4,000 protesters were detained, many dragged from the crowds and left bloodied from batons and boots. But even though these are the largest demonstrations in a decade, the reality is that Putin's approval ratings remain high among the majority of the population, not so among Western leaders, who have been weighing up further sanctions. And the EU's High Representative, Josep Borrell, will travel to Moscow in February to press for Navalny's release and that of his supporters. The Kremlin likes to dismiss Navalny as a non-entity, but with such high-level pressure, might Putin be forced to release him? Or is Navalny such a threat that the Kremlin needs him behind bars. Adam Pletz, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, let's go to our panel. And joining me now in Moscow is a member of President Putin's advisory team, Andrei Fedorov. He's also a former deputy foreign minister. Also in the Russian capital is Alexey Navalny's friend, Oleg Kozlovsky. He's Amnesty International's Eastern Europe and Central Asia researcher. And Dominik Tarczynski is in Brussels. He's a member of Poland's ruling party and an MEP for the European Conservatives and Reformist Group. Gentlemen, welcome all of you to the Newsmakers. Oleg, first to you.
Thank you.
Tell us, how big were these protests and will they actually make a difference?
It's difficult to estimate because the protests were spread into different streets. The police were trying to always split them between different parts of the city. But the estimate that Reuters has made is 40,000 people. The official estimate is 4,000, but we know that the police always tends to underestimate the protests, the opposition protests in Russia. So I think it's much closer to the Reuters figure. And there were probably more than 100,000 people across Russia who protested on that day in about 100 different cities.
And Oleg, will that make a difference?
I think eventually it will. Russian authorities are very reluctant to give in to pressure, especially to pressure from the street, but they cannot ignore it. And we see that Vladimir Putin is already on the defensive, telling that this palace doesn't belong formally to him. And every day Russian authorities have to somehow explain and justify why they keep Navalny in jail and why they keep ignoring the popular demands for his release. And I think eventually it will have effect.
Andrei, let's go to you. Surely the Kremlin is concerned.
Yes, the Kremlin is concerned, but Kremlin is not concerned by the number of the people who are in the streets. For Kremlin, the main concern is the geography of these protests. It's for the first time in 4 years when it became really nationwide. And it's very important to understand that it's a kind of prelude to the coming State Duma parliamentary elections on September 19th. And September 19th is the last chance for opposition to be heard.
And Oleg, would you say, hearing this, that Moscow is trying to stifle dissent?
Can you repeat, please?
Do you think Moscow is trying to stifle dissent?
Sorry, I have some problems with the audio.
Okay.
It's Moscow.
No problem. What we'll do now is we will go to Brussels and bring in Dominik. Dominik, there's pressure coming from the outside onto Russia, coming from the EU, also coming from the White House. Let's talk about the EU in particular. What do you think that the EU should do?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that Mr. Putin is the former KGB officer. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about this kind of pressure where when EU is debating about sanctions, not taking an action. So first of all, they should be in an action, not the debate. That's number one. And then EU is full of hypocrisy. I'm trying to repeat it every single day. On Monday, they are having a debate on sanctions on Russia. On Tuesday, they are having a phone call to Mr. Putin discussing a vaccine and cooperation. On Tuesday or Wednesday, they are having another discussion on Nord Stream 2. So they are making the businesses on Monday or Tuesday. On Wednesday or Thursday, they are having the sanctions. Full of rubbish. It has nothing to do with the real action. It has nothing to do with the pressure. It's just called pressure. In my mouth, in my words, it's called a game. They are having a beautiful play. They're having a game, making the businesses, and just talking about the sanctions. And Mr. Putin, as I mentioned, as a former KGB officer, just laughing. He is just laughing, making the businesses with Madame Merkel, making the money on Nord Stream 2, making the money on vaccine, and nothing else. So we need action, not the game, not the play. This is parliament, this is not a theater, and we are not actors. We are democratically elected members of the European Parliament, and we are responsible for over 700 million people of our community. Very important thing, and it has to be mentioned. Second World War was started by Germany on 1st of September 1939. 16 days later, on 17th of September 1939, Poland was invaded by Russians. We had 2 occupations, and this is what our history looked like. So to trust Russia on this case, to trust a former KGB officer, it's very hard to me as a grandson of those who fought against communists. I do not trust Mr. Putin. I do not trust those who are making the businesses with him.
Andrei, would you like to respond to that? Putin doesn't care, says Dominik. It's all a game.
Frankly speaking, Putin doesn't care too much about all these things. Because he is absolutely sure that EU leadership are still in favor in direct contacts with Russia. And it's very funny that Mr. Borrell is planning to come to Moscow on the February 4th, but the trial on Navalny will be on the February 2nd. And as some people joked in Moscow, Mr. Borrell can simply share the prison cell with Navalny to talk with him. So I don't think that there will be any kind of serious reaction from our side. Just yesterday, Minister of Foreign Affairs made a statement when it was said that Russia has no reason to deal with European Union because of Navalny case.
Oleg, what do you want the EU to do? We've seen there examples of disagreement and maybe a lack of action from the EU. What should they do, Oleg?
Well, it is of course disappointing, and I agree that at the moment actions of or inaction of the European Union looks very weak, and it certainly doesn't help Navalny. I don't want to hold EU's hand and tell them what to do. Yes, they didn't come up with any decisions. I think Mr. Borrell, if he decided to go to Moscow, he should make not just talking to Vladimir Putin, but also meeting with Navalny or meeting with his associates, a prerequisite for such a meeting.
I want to jump in, Oleg. You know, when Angela Merkel calls this, the Navalny case, attempted murder, these are very strong words from a human rights point of view. Surely you would expect a bigger reaction from the EU, from Germany, one of the most influential members of the EU.
Exactly, but so far the reaction was very muted. It was mostly words, it was mostly declarations, but they were short of any kind of diplomatic or other action. And of course, we hope that the EU will remember about their commitments to human rights and will put real pressure on Russian authorities to make good of Russia's own commitments.
Dominik, I've seen you nodding there off camera.
If I may.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, very important thing. We don't need debates. We don't need another discussion. We don't need another report. We need action. Sanctions, as strong as it could be, as it's possible by the international law. Now, not tomorrow, not in a week. Now, we need action, we need sanction. The strongest sanction
Dominik,
for Russia at the moment.
Let me interrupt if you don't mind.
And delay and decline Nord Stream 2. That would be the strongest
that was my question to you.
And strongest sanctions. So I appeal to Madam Merkel. Stop Nord Stream 2. Stop making the businesses. Do not build power of Mr. Putin. This is the strength he was given by Angela Merkel. Stop Nord Stream 2. That would weaken Mr. Putin. That's so simple. That's very simple. We don't need discussions. We need just one signature from Madame Merkel. That's it.
But do you see the will there from Germany to actually do that? We're talking about a pipeline from Russia going into Germany. This is a lot of money. Dominik?
Of course, they don't. Of course not. They don't care about Navalny. I'm really sorry to say that. All we can get from Germany is just words, beautiful words: democracy, freedom of speech, all this and that. But as I said, that's on Monday. On Tuesday, they are making the businesses on Nord Stream 2. Look at the French. Look at the Germans and French. What about Mistrals? What about warships? What about weapons sold to Russia? What about all these big businesses and real action? That's what they do. That's what Germany does. That's what France. That's what the French doing. So
okay, Dominik, is Biden
businesses?
Is Biden
the
answer?
Follow the money, then you see action.
Dominik, is President Biden, is he the solution, the answer?
I'm really sorry to say that I can't see Mr. Biden as a strong leader in many ways. I don't really see Biden next to Putin with strong words, strong attitude, and the will of interfering. No, I can't really believe that. I think Mr. Trump was much better, much stronger. He was just tough. He did what he promised. So that is the political difference. And I think in person, Mr. Biden is too weak to stand against Putin. Money, follow the money, follow Nord Stream 2, follow French, follow the warships and the money flow. That's the way, not the reports, not the debates. Our president, Mr. Duda, was the first one to urge international community to proceed with the sanctions. Not much answer. I can't really hear in Brussels people who are really interested in making the move, not just words. It's really sad, but this is the reality of European Union at the moment. Maybe they want to do it, but they are not fast as they should be. Nothing's happened. Navalny is not the only person who was about to be assassinated, poisoned. We had these cases in Great Britain in the past, not very long time ago. And throughout the years, throughout the decades, throughout the ages, it's all the same with Russia. You can't really believe that it will be changed with Mr. Putin, who again is the former KGB officer. That's reality.
Let's go to Moscow. Andrei, how concerned is Putin about President Biden and potential pressure that he will put on him?
I don't think that he is too much concerned, though in the last day's conversation, Mr. Biden mentioned the name of Navalny, speaking with Putin. But in Kremlin, I can tell you, no one is really afraid of serious sanctions. Yes, there is a possibility that there will be some personal sanctions, but it will not work, definitely. In Moscow, there is an absolutely clear understanding that there will be no sectoral sanctions. And what's about Nord Stream? Also, it's not a big concern because formally Nord Stream is a business project. It's not a political project from Moscow's point of view. And I don't think that...
project. Maybe the business is the way. Maybe that's the way to stop Putin.
No. Yeah, I can agree with you that there is a lot of political background, but I mean that I cannot see myself, knowing European Union quite well, that there is a will to play with the Nord Stream 2 at this moment. I think that situation might change later on.
But it's not only about European Union, it's about international community, about international businesses.
Yeah. Yes. I can tell you that something might change later on, somewhere late spring, when the new mass rallies will take place on the eve of parliamentary elections. But I don't think that from United States there will be some kind of tough guy's position. I think there will be general words about democracy, human rights as well. But what is Moscow is concerned is if United States and European Union will coordinate their sanctions. This will be a problem.
Could you see that happening, Dominik, coordination of sanctions between the US and the EU, as Andrei mentioned?
Well, we could try. Obviously, we can have this discussion, but it's going to take weeks. It's going to take months, maybe, and the whole situation will be forgotten by the society, by the international community. The problem, the real weakness of the European Union is just hypocrisy. I'm really sorry to say that. But again, I will keep repeating it as I repeated for the last 5 or 6 years. Hypocrisy from Madame Merkel and hypocrisy from the French mainly, but many others. They are using beautiful words, but then they are making the businesses. So until the Germany will not stop making the businesses, and this huge project, Nord Stream 2, it's not a business project.
Okay.
Even if that would be only a business project, why do you make the businesses and then taking an action on sanctions? It's hypocrisy. Sanction is just a little bit of the GDP, and then you've got the huge project, which is for years, and everyone knows that it has nothing to do with the business. Business is just a small bit of it.
I need to interrupt you because I want to talk about another huge project that apparently, well, has made Russians very angry. Oleg, what did you make of the video that has been seen by about 100 million people now, claiming a really big, sprawling Black Sea palace built for the president using Russian taxpayers' money? Oleg?
Well, on the one hand, the fact that this palace exists and that it is probably used by Putin has been known for about 10 years now. So it's not a complete sensation and a big piece of news. But the way it was presented by Navalny and some of the details that he managed to obtain, like the plan of this palace and how much the furniture there cost, of course, it made a great impression on a lot of Russians, where this is just the amounts of money that they cannot even imagine. For many people, even one sofa in his room is worth more than their entire property, that their apartment and everything they own. So of course this angered a lot of people, and a lot of people, not just in Moscow, but I think even more in the regions, they were very much shocked by this revelation, which they didn't know about before. And I think this helped their protests, and it will be very difficult to explain to people that, okay, you know, this is what Putin is supposed to have because he's a president.
Andrei, where did this palace come from?
Okay, this palace was built up there, and the problem is that the authorities didn't answer in a proper way how it was built, who was participating, etc., etc. If it could be done in a more or less normal way, there will be no so much noise. I fully agree with Oleg that this film is influencing very much, especially in the current economic situation. Yeah, the problem is that if you want society to be informed, you should be true with society. And it was a mistake to make a lot of mist around this. But as I said, the key problem is that we are facing elections. We are facing elections, and popularity of the ruling party, United Russia, is going down. And all these films and all his investigations of Navalny, they are ruining the image of the ruling party. And of course, that's why the power now will undertake all efforts to stop mass protests.
Okay. What about next Sunday? There are more protests. Andrei, sorry to jump in. There are more protests expected this Sunday. How big do you expect them to be? Are you concerned?
No, I don't think. I don't think that it will be big protests. First of all, because authorities are much more prepared. And anyway, even in Moscow, there will be even artificial limitations for people to come. Then there is a very huge now campaign in us media asking people not to come, saying that everyone who will come can be fined, imprisoned, etc., etc. I think that there will be, once again, nationwide protests, but by number of the people it could be less, by various reasons. Anyway, as I said, it's just the beginning of the new protest movement in Russia, which can be on the peak late spring, early September this year.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. We've run out of time. It's been a great, fascinating discussion. Gentlemen, thank you, all of you, for joining us on The Newsmakers. And to you, our audience, thank you for watching. See you next time. And those were our guests, Andrei Fedorov, Oleg Kozlovsky, and Dominik Tarczynski. Thank you to our panel too. See you next time. Bye-bye.